สวัสดีครับ Hello everybody. My name is Sittisak.
My name is Tanongsak.
We are researchers from the Princess Maha Chakri Sirindhorn Anthropology Center or the SAC in Bangkok, Thailand. The subject that we are going to discuss today is archaeological data management. Why do we need data management? And what are its benefits for archaeological work? And what are the processes for this kind of management?
Today, we will be discussing that the giving examples of its function with the SAC database. Another interesting projects that manage the data for good use.
The outline of today's discussion will be divided into two parts. First, the archaeological workflow, how is it consistent with the information management process. And we shouldn't forget that the heart of archaeology is data collection and analysis that will lead to the interpretation of archaeological evidence. Therefore, we cannot deny the importance of data in archaeology. In this topic, I'm going to give some idea about how we can combine these two sciences accordingly.
The second topic is examples of SAC databases and other interesting projects that have the data managed and put to good use. Before we get into the contents, these terms will be mentioned often in this discussion. The first word, archaeological data. Facts or stories related to things obtained from archaeological operations, such as information about a place location, archaeological evidence, environment, people, animals, objects, soil layers, and etc. Being managed in a format suitable for communication, interpretation, and processing. The information that may be obtained from observation, collection, measurement, data, which can be numerical, visual, sound, or any important symbolic information, must be true and continuous. This data comes from various sources, such as excavation, survey, document, sampling, and the data can be in many forms, both physical and digital, such as database, format table, GIS, oral history and narratives, text, image.
The next term is archaeological project. This term covers every type of program relating to data from archaeological sites, surveys, collection, and analysis. We can divide data in archaeological project into two types. First, data destructive project or data from the excavation. This may sound surprising, but we should not forget that archaeological excavation destroys the original environment in which the evidence used to be, but for research. Therefore, it is important to record the data obtained from excavation. When the excavation pit is dug, the evidence that emerges in each layer must be recorded in detail so that we can take this data back for analysis and interpretation in the lab, as well as allow future researchers to use it in new interpretation. Second, data collective project or new unique data. Data from this type of project can be separated into two types. The first type is a project in the form of a survey to collect basic information before starting the excavation. For instance, archaeological site and aerial photographic archaeological survey project. The second type is a project that is compiled from what already exists as object or as data to be managed or a system to be organized to use for the intended purpose. For instance, project to study and analyze various evidence such as pottery, stone tools, animal bones, and projects that to start and develop a database related to archaeological, such as archaeological site database, physical anthropology database. The last term is archaeological archive. Every data that has a record during archaeological work, whether it is a register of found object, digital file that record evidence in various formats, such as photograph, drawing, excavation record. After the excavation, the data will go into the archive and become a source of which there are two types. First, the primary source. All data with a record number is considered a primary source that need to be preserved for researchers to study and make use of this data to analyze and reinterpretation. Next is the secondary source, report, research, or databases that have been analyzed and interpreted from primary sources for publication of the data and knowledge from the excavation. We can provide services of both types of sources in the form of on-site services in the library or a document reading room and online services through the internet system. In this slide, there are 5 basic steps for the joint archaeological project. First, startup. Start with the development of a project proposal and then develops into a project brief. The main content that should be addressed in this document is the standards that we choose to work with. In the field of archaeology, I recommend that you use the CIFA standard, which are standard for work and ethics. I have attached a link to the bibliography. Second, initiation. This step will be filling in detail about what our project will do or how to write a full project. At this stage, there will be several important activities occurring, starting from designing various forms to be used for data collecting, selection, and guidelines for applying various standards and manual to the project. It is necessary to think about how we use the data management plan at this stage, like how to get the data, how to manage it, who has the right to access and use it. In addition to data management, we need to be mindful of other stakeholders who will be involved in the projects, such as the curator, who are responsible for curating and displaying the artifact obtained from the excavation, and the data manager, who will help manage the data and add to the archive. The third is execution. The actual work will begin in this step, and this process has the most detailed work. As I have mentioned earlier, data management isn't just finishing an excavation, then processing the data, but data management starts during field work. For example, giving found antique their registration number, giving the photo log code number and description are all basic data management during field work. At this stage, we need to ensure that we are managing the data under our data management plan. Whether the standards for creating digital data are implemented, there are things that we will need to check regularly because the data must be used for analysis and interpretation, leading to write a summary report of the excavation or the preparation of academic works in other formats. Then, the next step will be to select and prepare the data before sending it to the archive for long-term storage. Fourth, the curation. This step is a continuation of the data preparation. Data management is necessary to ensure that it is preserved and accessible in the long term through digital curation. Lastly is the reuse or bring information from a well-organized archive to be processed to produce other works. In addition to preparing reports or academic papers such as exhibition, documentary, board game. In SAC, we have Data Lifecycle Management Model or DLM for the data management of the organization. We have applied to our project that involve digital resources. DLM has 7 steps as follows. First, plan. Once the concept and annual operating policy have been delivered, next is the planning to manage digital resources under the project and program that are laid out. Second, get what method will be used to obtain the desired data, whether we create it ourselves or co-create with the outsider or receive it from somebody. Will the obtained data require a minimum standard to create or any condition to accept? Third, manage. When the data has been acquired, there will be criteria for evaluating and selecting the data to be used in the work process, including how to manage digital resources in a suitable condition for their use. 4. Describe. This step is crucial for lifecycle data management. It is necessary to act carefully and appropriately with the project goals, because the provision of metadata related to that data will allow access, retrieval, and transformation to be used conveniently in other projects in the future. Therefore, metadata should be designed and provide appropriate detail about that data. 5. Check and save. To verify the correctness of the detailed metadata and data integrity before saving the data to the system or into the selected storage device. In addition, this is necessary to monitor the operating condition and update the information at the specific time as well. 6. Share. To use the data for various purposes for the project, such as creating a database, preparing academic documents. However, before sharing data outside the organization, necessary conditions are set for accessing and using this information. And lastly, transform. This process may happen from time to time. It depends on the consideration of the person in charge of the project or those involved. If considering the resulting data can be processed for use in other format or can be applied to other projects of the SAC. To visualize the relationship between the archaeological work process and data lifecycle management, let me compare these two models with a step-by-step through process. We can see that DLM infiltrates the initiation, execution, curation, and reuse stage. For example, in the initiation stage that has DLM, this is the process in lifecycle management with various questions that should be asked, such as what data will you produce? What data will be deposited and where? Second, the execution stage, which is the start of the actual operation, consists of the step of get, manage, describe, and share in data lifecycle management with various questions that should be asked. How will you look after your data? What file format will you use? Which software will you use? How will you describe and document your data? Third, the curation stage, which is to prepare the digital data for the archive. The manage and describe stage is continue. Follow up with check and save to ensure that the managed files are of sufficient quality for long-term storage in the system with various questions such as, is the file structure or naming understandable to author? Any further data required? Which data will be kept? Which data can be discarded? Which data can be included in the archive? And finally, the reuse stage, which is the transform process with various questions, such as who will be interested in reusing the data. Is there sufficient information to allow easy reuse of the data? Right now, the academic database of the SAC is in operation, and we have 31 databases divided into 4 categories: archaeology and history, anthropology, ethnology, and sociocultural study. We try to apply data management standard to our academic data. We want the database that we have invested and worked on to be accessible and to be used for a long time for the benefits of academic circle and service user. In the SAC academic database, when we receive the task of creating a database on any topic, we have 2 things to do. First of all, we need to analyze the contents and resources that we have and what kind of issue they are, requiring metadata to describe the content and context, such as title, creator, various specific descriptions, and how this metadata need to be structured, descriptive, and what resources are need to explain, such as picture, attached file, video. So we are going to look at the standard metadata that we can implement in the world of data management. There are already standards for us to choose from, which are 2 groups: the domain group, such as the library, museum, and archive group, and the function purpose group that are used metadata such as write metadata, preservation metadata, or descriptive metadata. As you can see, in the field of library, archive, and museum, there is standard metadata for data structure, data content, data format, and data exchange. For example, if you want to create a database which has aim to describe material culture, you must use CDWA for standard data structure. But if you want to create an archive database, you must use ISAD for your database structure. In case we couldn't find a suitable standard metadata, but have a clear purpose to disseminate academic information through the website, there is the DUBLIN core metadata element set, which is a general description for web resources for use to use. Today, I would like to give an example of our work in 4 databases, which are the SAC Research Database, Anthropological Archive Database, Archaeological Science Database, Pottery in Thailand Database. For these 4 databases, we have chosen 3 different data structure standards, which are the DUBLIN core, ISAD, and CDWA to describe academic data. Starting with the SAC Research Database, which the user can find information from researcher, article, area, and institution. This database was created to publish the produced academic works or support funded by the SAC. Back then, the SAC had problems that academic works and articles produced by researchers or the works of outside who receive research funding from the SAC have been kept scattered. Some with researcher, some with the project coordinator. When we need the data, we had to ask who kept it. So we produced the SAC Research Database to solve this issue. This database is collected report and study results of the SAC as a source of archive and allow the public to easily access and use. To make it easier to picture, have you guys had this experience? When looking for a report on the excavation of archaeological sites somewhere, sometimes you have to find it at the Fine Arts Department in Bangkok, or in some places in the regional office. You have to contact the archaeological office in charge. If it is an old excavation report, it might not be found because the person in charge has moved. The newcomer doesn't know where the original stuff is stored. This is a similar situation. Management of finished project or research reports. There must be a management plan for the beginning that has a channel for preservation and can be published in any format. In addition to public in book form or the electronic book for further researchers or the public who are interested in this document. As for the data structure that we choose to use for the database, the nature of the research is a single object. There is no need to create stratified relationship. We use the DUBLIN core metadata element sets for the description. This is an easy to use, uncomplicated set of metadata and can be applied to a wide variety of digital resources and content, can exchange data, and can be applied with other standards or programs. Also, a standard for data structure that are widely used internationally. The DUBLIN core metadata element set that we apply to the database can be divided into three parts. First, the content. We have title, description, subject. Second, format. We have identifier, type, data. Third, intellectual property. We have creator, contributor, and right.
The next example is the database of archaeological sites in Thailand. The SAC has developed this database to collect and present preliminary information on archaeological sites in Thailand. The source of the information include published academic papers from source. For example, excavation reports, survey reports, research reports, theses, articles. Most were obtained from the studies of archaeologists from the Fine Arts Department and archaeological scholars, as well as further surveys of the SAC. Its purpose is to present necessary basic information of archaeological sites. Important data is divided into major categories: site name, subject, source of information, information about the terrain and environment, archaeological summary, tourist information of archaeological sites, other related matters or resources, such as legends, inscriptions, news, etc. Age, location, type of archaeological site, history of archaeological studies of that site, data provider, date of data preparation. In general, this database is based on DUBLIN core metadata, as shown in the PowerPoint, mapping metadata between data fields of archaeological site record forms and DUBLIN core metadata.
The third example is Anthropological Archive database. The main purpose of this database is to collect and conserve anthropological fieldwork materials. Right now, we have 17 collections online that are in service, such as Professor Charles F. Kars, PROF.CHIN UD, and Professor Anand Kanchanapan. In terms of data management, the Anthropological Archive database uses the ISAD standard as a structure to provide detailed information. This standard is suitable for archival material that require hierarchical access, unlike accessing resources individually like the SAC research database. We will look at the example to see why. Let me give you an example from the collection of Professor Chin UD. We have 403 records of documents in service, which are documents from his work from 1962 to 1985. The ISAD classification of documents was divided into three series: anthropological fieldwork, official documents, and personal documents. The collection of Professor Chin has 2 points that I would like to discuss in detail. The first point is the importance of this collection to Thai archaeology. Second is why this document must be managed in an archival form. The first point is for those who are interested in prehistoric archaeology in Thailand. Most of all, everyone must have been through some of Professor Chin's work. He has reported on the excavation of important sites such as excavation in Kanchanaburi and Ratchaburi province in the 60s, which reveal that there are prehistoric people in this area since Stone Age. For this reason, the documents that have arisen from his life work are important pieces of evidence that let us know how the pioneering archaeologists work. The second point, the reason for using the ISAD system to manage Professor Chin document is because we would like to reflect on each dimension of his lifelong work. Therefore, we choose to group the document into 3 series. The first series is archaeological fieldwork, including diary during the fieldwork, excerpts from the various books relating to archaeology, sketchbooks of artifacts and sites, and photographs of antiques. The second series is official document. These documents produced during the Professor Chin time working at the Fine Art Department and Faculty of Archaeology at Simphakon University, consisting of memorandum of investigation and clarification of the fact about antique meeting records. The last series is the personal documents, consisting of correspondence with various individuals, whether foreign archaeologists, students studying abroad, journal, memo, application form. Each series will have a hierarchical range as subseries, file, item, respectively. This is an example from Professor Chin's series, Anthropological Fieldwork. We can see a sketch of antique from his notebook and, most importantly, the handwritten manuscript of prehistoric archaeology in Thailand in both Thai and English. This book is considered the first book on prehistoric archaeology in Thailand and is still used as a reference in teaching and learning until this day. In the last slide, I've mentioned the hierarchy of archaeological documents according to the ISAD system. This is an example of the arrangement of the document hierarchy of Professor Chin collection. You can see that the hierarchy is divided into 5 collection, series, subseries, file, and item. The overview of all Professor Chin document is organized in the collection level first. Then we analyze what this collection is all about, the kind of material there are. In this collection, we have archaeological fieldwork, official documents, and personal documents. It reflects the image of his work in each dimension as I have said. Then, at the subseries level, we use the type of material as a divider such as notebook, photograph, or letter before reaching the item level of each document. Let me clarify this point again, that the rule for classifying documents in each collection don't have to be the same. It depends on the analysis and design of the data manager, such as some collections use the name of ethnic group as a divider, or some collections use the area of work as a divider. We can mix and match these things as appropriate, depending on the content and type of material. When the tiles have been divided, each ISAD layer is described repeatedly according to the data structure that appear in this mind map. There are 8 core elements, each of which has a sub-element. For example, the core element identity statement area. describe the different identifiers that are unique to the document that we can use for retrieval, including the sub-element, reference code, title, or context area that provide information about the context of the document, name of creator, bibliography, history, and archival history.
The next example is the Potteries in Thailand database. The SAC came up with the idea of collecting and storing various types of archaeological evidence that the researchers have published in different types of publications to store them into the same database that the SAC has decided and will be linked to a database of archaeological sites in Thailand that the SAC has previously prepared. The SAC started by developing the physical anthropology in Thailand database and the pottery in Thailand database as cultural objects of people in the past and as ancient objects that are found in many archaeological sites. All data in the database is derived from studies that have been presented to the public, either in form of research, theses, books, reports, articles, or online data. The main sources of data are from the Fine Arts Department and Sirindhorn University, where the SAC has compiled, processed, and organized it into a form. Here, I would like to give an example of the Potteries in Thailand database that uses the data structure standard of CDWA. The Potteries in Thailand database website stores subdata divided into two databases. First, academic papers on the study of ancient pottery that found in Thailand. And second, pottery data which provides information on a piece-by-piece basis. This is an example of a website that presents information on academic papers on the study of pottery. This is an example of a website that presents information on a piece of pottery from Khao Phranalai archaeological site in Thailand. Here, we would like to mention only the pottery database, which collects and presents information on each archaeological site before viewing each piece of pottery. As said, the database contains an element of the form used to store data developed from CDWA. The SAC considers adding necessary metadata which has a very high resolution to a certain extent, because the goal is to support further education and bring the data to manage the database from the authenticated source that is published for the benefit of education. The data structure decided as mentioned above is the data structure decided to be applied to various types of antiques. We think the data structure that we use can comprehensively describe the attributes of each pottery and can be used for further analysis, which the database site can filter the data according to the topic of attributes. The main subjects for collecting and presenting data on individual potteries are name and ID, dating and culture, state and measurement, shape and surface decoration, material and technology, archaeological site and context, image, related resources, analysis and dissemination. The data structure of this database has mapping elements to CDWA and the DUBLIN core metadata. We will talk about the scope of information in each topic. Name and ID. It consists of a set of record ID, name or title set, both pottery name and typology name. Object type and cultural name are listed. Here is the cultural name of the pottery. Dating and culture consists a series of indices for the age of the pottery obtained from studies, analysis by various methods, both relative date and absolute date, including the data of the production source, which can be linked to the age of the pottery. State and measurement indicates how complete the condition of the pottery is past that appear or are analysis, and the size of each part, such as the limb, neck, shoulder, belly or body, spout, bottom, foot or base, legs, caps, and handles. Shape and surface decoration. Identifying shapes and decorations that can be observed on the surface of the pottery, in the overview, and in each part of the pottery. Material and technology provide data on the results of the study of materials and technology for the production of pottery. Both the texture and the surface color can be linked to the temperature of the sintering and the current, forming raw materials, etc. The results of which are studied by the naked eye, and internal or chemical composition. Archaeological site and context provides contextual information on the location and where the pottery was found. Both archaeological sites and environmental data of sites, excavation pits, soil layers, and where the potteries were found in excavated pits or archaeological sites, including information about the excavation, the name of the finder who discovered it, and the year of excavation. Image. This is an image data of pottery, image source, and management of those images. It provides information about the picture. Analysis and dissemination. Store information about the analysis and the source of the data of the analysis pottery. Related resources. Store information about the related matters of the pottery's information, such as related documents, related persons, other collaborators of the analysis, such as photographers, illustrators, editors. Data management and organizing the data in a database format is very useful and can be used for a variety of purposes, even with clear goals, such as specific research for educational purpose in the classroom, or even for the economic tourism, all without a clear goal, but to reserve the data to use as evidence or for future use, such as managing and storing old photos, which is often used as evidence for the return of antiquities to the motherlands, such as Thailand's recent case, where the U.S. returned lintels from Prasat หนองหงส์ and Prasat เขาโล้น. or record archaeological evidence found from excavations in the soil layer along with the context of the environment, which can be used to study and interpret the site information process. Another example from Highland Archaeological Project by Professor Lasmi Chusongdet. In this project, her team used 3D scans, physiological, and artistic data, together with archaeological excavation data, scientific age determination, resulting in a replica of a face of 25 to 35 years old female who lived around 13,600 years ago at Chamlot Archaeological Site, Mae Hong Son Province, Thailand. An example of using data from LiDAR technology to interpret the Angkor Wat area. Restoration of the Brazilian National Museum, which most of the buildings and exhibitions were destroyed by fire, turned to digital form or visual tour. The goals and benefits of managing archaeological data may have several aspects according to the projects of each project or according to the goals of the funder. Generally, may be as follows. The first, to be the work standard, increasing the work convenience. When there is a standard for managing data together in the project, it will allow working more quickly and no need to keep arguing or storing data that is easy to find and could be accessed quickly because the data is stored in a system and the formats are set together as standard. Second, avoid redundant work. Reduce the resources required to manage data, including manpower, time, and cost. The next, to ensure work continuity, especially when there is a new team or forwarding the work to other people and departments. The fourth, facilitate information sharing that leads to mutual benefits between teams, projects, and departments. The next, to reuse stored data, present new methods for studies that may lead to new perspectives. Reinterpretation, deeper analysis, to be used for creating better levels of work. The sixth, the grant owner provides a project information management plan. In some cases, it may be considered that the preparation of a research project database is an operation at the result level, because funder may ask for data management plans as part of a grant proposal. Lastly, the most importantly, it reduces the risk of losing data in having a good data management plan. The kept data is organized and secure. Data storage and backup methods are defined, like what format should it be, kept in which source, in the computer, cloud, external hard disk, how many copies? Because every data source and store has its shelf life.
This slide is to summarize again what is the data management process of archaeology work here. It started with collecting data. Once it has arrived, it has to be managed and then selected to prepare the data. By using the process of digital curation before sending the data to the archive. However, I would like everyone to remember 5 important principles during the data management process. First, try to collect all data from in situ. Second, the management of the information request is based on standards or a reliable manual. Third, always keep in mind during the collecting and handling of data before sending it to the archive that the data we transmit must be fileable, accessible, actionable, and must be reusable for other purposes. Fourth, management must consider legal matters and ethics as well, such as asking permission to explore and excavate are correct according to the procedure or not. Any personal data in the information we collected, information obtained from the stakeholder or the community that all the area get to know our work process and participated in commenting on the work. Thank you all for your interest in our lecture until the end. If anyone has questions or any suggestion, you can email us or leave comments in the Google Classroom. Thank you.